What if I told you that the most strategic character in the entire DC universe, the master of prep time, the ultimate detective, could actually become one of the most powerful beings in the multiverse? Yeah, I'm talking about Batman with a power ring. But not just the green one. What if he had the yellow ring of fear, or the red one of rage, or even the blue ring of hope? Picture this, a guy who already takes down gods using just his brain. Now, imagine him with a weapon that lets him create literally anything with his mind and turn emotions into raw energy. That changes everything. But here's the question. Would he become an even more unstoppable hero or the galaxy's worst nightmare? Today, we're diving headfirst into this wild idea. What would it look like if Batman wielded the different lantern rings? So get ready, this is gonna mess with everything you thought you knew about DC Comics. And at the end, I wanna hear from you. Which ring really fits Batman best, and which one makes him the most dangerous? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The Dark Knight and the power rings. To really get the impact of a lantern ring in Batman's hands, we first gotta understand what these rings actually are, and why he's one of the few people who's worn multiple of them. In the DC universe, lantern rings are powered by raw emotion. Each color stands for a different emotional force. Green is willpower, yellow is fear, red is rage, blue is hope, indigo is compassion, orange is greed, violet is love, black is death, and white is life. They're easily some of the most insanely powerful tools in all of DC. And Batman, even without any superpowers, has been chosen by more than one of these cosmic forces. The first time fans' minds really got blown was in Green Lantern number 9, 2006, when a yellow ring from the Sinestro Corps tried to recruit him. Why? Because nobody strikes more fear into criminals than Batman. And that caught the attention of Parallax, the literal embodiment of fear. Then, during Blackest Night, he actually wielded a Black Lantern ring. And later in Brightest Day, he used the White Lantern ring too. Man, that's wild. The craziest part? Unlike a lot of heroes, Batman wouldn't be overpowered or consumed by the ring. He could handle it because his mind is sharp, disciplined, and nearly unbreakable. He's not just some soldier. He's the ultimate tactician. Alright, now that we've got the groundwork laid, let's run with this idea from the start. What if he was chosen by the most iconic core of them all? What would happen if the Dark Knight wielded the ring of pure willpower? Batman with the green ring of will, the perfect guardian. If there's one thing that defines Batman, it's unshakable will. He lost his parents, watched Gotham fall into chaos, faced gods, monsters, even Superman, and never gave up. So, if a Green Lantern ring ever chose Bruce Wayne, it wouldn't just make sense, it'd be inevitable. The green ring picks someone with the willpower to take on the impossible. And who does that every single night in Gotham without a single superpower? Exactly. Now imagine Batman with the power to create literally anything he can think of. Shields, weapons, vehicles, giant robots, full-on armor, all shaped by a mind that can calculate every possible outcome in seconds. And here's the kicker. Unlike some lanterns who get overwhelmed by emotion or doubt, Batman would use the ring with pure strategic precision. He'd know its limits, every enemy's weakness, and the smartest way to use each construct. In the Injustice, Gods Among Us comic, when Hal Jordan loses his ring, guess who steps in to take his place? Yup, Batman. And in that universe, he shows that a Green Lantern with a tactical mind is pretty much unstoppable. Now think about this. With access to the Guardians of the Universe's archives, he'd have insider knowledge on every major threat across the galaxy. Batman would become a fusion of detective, warrior, and cosmic diplomat. But here's the real question. What if, instead of willpower, the ring ran on something darker? Something Batman knows all too well. What if Batman wore a yellow ring from the Sinestro Corps? If there's one thing Batman controls just as well as willpower, it's fear. And not his fear, but the fear he strikes in others. The dark look, the cape, the glowing eyes, the deep voice. Everything about him is designed to freeze criminals in their tracks before the fight even starts. The guy literally became a living urban legend in Gotham. Crooks freak out just hearing a whisper that he might be nearby. And that, my friends, is exactly the kind of fuel that powers a Yellow Lantern ring from the Sinestro Corps. In Green Lantern number 17, Parallax, the actual fear entity, tried to recruit Batman. Why? Because he didn't even need a ring to wield fear? He was fear. Now just imagine Batman accepting that power. He wouldn't need to hide in the shadows anymore. He'd be the darkness. He'd use fear as a weapon across the entire universe. But here's where things get tricky, the moral dilemma. Batman's always been super careful not to cross certain lines. He knows fear can destroy just as easily as it can protect. And with a yellow ring, he'd be one step away from becoming the very thing he swore to fight. But what if, one day, he decided the world needed absolute order? What if he believed fear was the only way to keep peace? In that case, Batman wouldn't be a hero anymore. He'd become something more like a tyrant god. But check this out. That's not the only ring he could wear. There are versions of him with the Ring of Life, and even the Ring of Death. Ready for this? Because now we're diving into the wildest, most alternate realities you can imagine. The alternate versions. Batman with the red, blue, indigo, and even orange rings. You thought the green and yellow rings were already next level? Then buckle up, because there's a whole multiverse out there where Batman goes way beyond that. In tons of alternate timelines and comic storylines, the Dark Knight has come into contact with pretty much every color in the Lantern emotional spectrum. And the results? Man, they're absolutely mind-blowing. Black Ring. Batman of Death. This is the version of Batman that even the most brutal villains in the universe are terrified of. The Black Ring, from the Black Lantern Corps, doesn't choose a wielder. It brings the dead back. It's the symbol of anti-life, of absolute endings. But what if Batman died and came back wearing a Black Lantern ring? That actually happened in Blackest Night. Batman's corpse was reanimated as a Black Lantern, and even though it was just for a moment, it was enough to show just how terrifying that version of him really is. A zombie Batman, powered by the entity of death. No morals, no memories, just pure instinct to hunt the living. And the scariest part? His strategic mind was still partially active. He'd track the most powerful beings in the universe and calculate the most efficient kills to grow the Black Lantern Corps. This is the ultimate nightmare. A Batman who can't be stopped and can't be saved. White Ring, Batman of Life. And now, the purest light of all. The White Ring is the fusion of every emotion. It represents life in its most complete, absolute form. Only the most balanced, self-aware beings, truly in tune with the cycle of existence, can wield it. In Brightest Day, Batman briefly holds this ring, and in that moment, he's more than just a hero. He becomes a universal symbol of rebirth. White Lantern Batman would have the power to heal entire planets, bring the dead back, cleanse minds, and restore hope across the whole universe. But that kind of power comes with a cost. He's no longer just Gotham's protector. He becomes something beyond Bruce Wayne, a force that represents the very will of existence itself. Now picture this. Batman could bring Alfred back, Jason, even his parents. But he chooses not to, because he knows messing with life and death would break the natural order. That choice, that level of restraint, would be the peak of his emotional evolution. The detective becomes a god, and still chooses to stay human. Alright, now let's dive into some hypothetical scenarios. Red Ring. Batman of pure rage. Imagine a Batman who's completely lost control, who witnessed something so horrific, his anger just took over. In some dark versions of the DC universe, like the Dark Multiverse, there are Bruces out there carrying so much rage, they're perfect targets for a Red Lantern ring. He'd be spitting blood, unleashing raw, destructive energy. A Batman with zero restraint? That's the apocalypse right there. The Red Lantern Corps runs on pure, overwhelming rage. Its members don't just feel anger, they live in it. The ring replaces their heart, and their blood turns into corrosive plasma. Now picture that in Bruce Wayne's body, a man who spent his entire life swallowing the hate for his parents' murder, for Gotham's corruption, for the endless tragedies he can't stop. In an alternate timeline where he loses Alfred, all the Robins, and watches Gotham fall apart, that emotional explosion would make him the perfect vessel for a red ring. The result? Red Batman, the Judge of Wrath. He didn't arrest criminals anymore, he executed them. He built an army of red drones that hunted villains and destroyed them without mercy. His constructs were made of pain, Flaming skulls, burning chains, monstrous armor, and with every blow, he screamed the names of Gotham's victims. This Batman didn't care about justice anymore. He wanted punishment. Blue Ring, Batman of Hope? Now on the flip side, we've got the most human version of him, the one who believes, even in the middle of darkness. It might sound strange, but yeah, Batman is a symbol of hope too, especially for the people of Gotham. With a blue lantern ring, he'd become a beacon of inspiration, maybe even rivaling Superman as a moral guide. This is the most paradoxical Batman. Hope has never been the most obvious emotion tied to him, but maybe it's the deepest. Because to keep fighting in a city that seems beyond saving, you've got to believe it can still be saved. Now picture a universe where Gotham actually comes back from the darkness, where Jason Todd was saved, where Harvey Dent never became Two-Face, where Bruce saw his efforts finally pay off. In that world, he's chosen by the Blue Lantern Corps and becomes a galactic symbol of hope. Blue Batman becomes a peacemaker. He doesn't create weapons. He makes shields, healing energy, protective nets. He's not focused on defeating villains. He wants to save them. He travels the stars, stopping wars before they even start, using words, presence, and conviction. It's like the spirit of Thomas Wayne was reborn inside Bruce. This Batman doesn't scare people. He inspires them. He brings people together instead of tearing them apart. Indigo Ring, Batman of Compassion. This one might sound like one of the most unlikely, but it's definitely not impossible. Batman may seem cold on the outside, but he feels every bit of Gotham's pain. He adopted orphans, protects the vulnerable, and never gives up on trying to redeem his enemies. Now imagine Batman with his compassion turned all the way up. He'd be like a warrior monk, healing minds and guiding lost souls. Here's something to think about. Why hasn't he ever killed the Joker, even after everything he's lost? Because deep down, he still believes that even the worst people can change. The Indigo Ring chooses those who feel compassion even for their enemies. And for Batman, that would be the ultimate form of his empathetic side. But there's more. The Indigo Ring can channel the powers of other Corps. It's like an emotional bridge across the entire spectrum. This version of Batman would be almost like a shaman, a spiritual warrior who feels the pain of others, which means he knows exactly where and how to strike to stop evil at its core. With it, Bruce becomes a guide, a redeemer, a master of emotion. Picture him going up against Darkseid, but instead of throwing punches, he forces the tyrant to relive his most human memories. It's cosmic psychologist Batman. And yeah, it's just as epic as it sounds. Orange Ring, Batman of Greed. Now this is where things get really dangerous. This is hands down the darkest side of them all. The Orange Ring turns any emotion into possession. Everything you see, you want. The Orange Ring is nearly impossible to share. It's usually ruled by just one user, Larfleeze, the obsessive hoarder who consumes everything he touches. But what if Batman decided he's the only one who can save the world? That he needs full control? He could end up completely consumed by the obsession to collect knowledge, power, tech. He'd become a paranoid machine of possessiveness. Now, picture Batman with this power. Bruce has always had a thing for control. He monitors the Justice League, keeps contingency plans for every hero, and hides secrets even from Superman. Give him an orange ring, and it becomes an obsession. Orange Lantern Batman would create energy copies of everyone. Joker, Alfred, the entire Justice League. All duplicated from his greedy mind, eternally under his control. No more risk, no more mistakes, no more loss. He'd make himself the sole protector of everything. A paranoid tyrant, driven by the fear of failure. This is the Batman who wanted to save the world and ended up enslaving it. Now here's the big question. What would actually happen to the DC Universe if Batman really became the ultimate bearer of one of these rings? What happened to the DC Universe? If Batman, with all his intellect, discipline, and trauma, really became the ultimate bearer of a lantern ring, the DC Universe would never be the same. With the green ring, he'd become the greatest lantern in history. He'd handle cosmic threats with surgical precision and lead the Corps with an ironclad code of ethics. He'd be respected and feared. The universe would be safer, but constantly watched. With the yellow ring, Fear would take over. Villains wouldn't act out of ambition anymore, just pure terror. Freedom would slowly give way to total control. Batman might actually win the war on crime, but at what cost? And with the other rings, the extremes get even more dangerous. With red, he'd destroy villains, and probably innocents too. With blue, he might become a new kind of Superman, a spiritual one. With indigo, he'd be humanity's last guide. With orange, he'd rule alone, choking the world with his obsession to save everything. With black, he'd bring terror like never before. With white, he'd become a god, spreading healing across the universe. One thing's for sure, the Justice League would have to step in, maybe even go against Bruce. The world would split, some seeing him as a messiah, others a masked dictator. But in the end, the real question isn't which ring Batman should wield. It's, should Batman have access to any of this power? Because honestly, Batman's greatest superpower was never a ring. It's the fact that he has no powers. It's his humanity, his pain, his daily choice not to cross the line. And maybe, just maybe, the most dangerous ring for Batman is any of them. Now, it's your turn. Which ring would make Batman a legend, and which one would turn him into a monster? Comment below, and if this blew your mind, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because this is just the beginning.